synthesis. So this is my biology final project about important biological macromolecules. We'll be covering carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins. Here we have a simple block legend. Hydrogen is white, oxygen is gray, carbon is black, HO positive is red, and OH negative is orange. Here we have some of the prime examples of carbohydrates. The monosaccharide glucose on the left, galactose in the middle, and fructose on the right. I only built representations on monosaccharides because, in all honesty, I couldn't figure out how to properly make models of the polysaccharides and the disaccharides. Starting with glucose on energy is released from glucose and plants synthesize glucose using carbon dioxide and water, and glucose in turn is used for energy requirements for the plants. Excess glucose is stored as starch that is catabolized by animals and humans that feed on them, and starch is a polysaccharide, most certain. So galactose and fructose are sugars that are found in two different sources. Galactose are found from milk, and fructose from fruit. All three of these carbohydrates have the same chemical formula, C6H12O6, but they differ structurally and chemically. These are called isomers. They may be comprised of the same makeup, but they have a different arrangement of functional groups around the asymmetric carbon. All of these monosaccharides have more than one asymmetric carbon. Disaccharides, meaning two, form when two of these monosaccharides undergo dehydration reaction. During this, hydroxyl group of one monosaccharide combines with hydrogen of another monosaccharide, releasing a molecule of water and forming a covalent bond. One common disaccharide is lactose, which consists of glucose and galactose, and it's found naturally in milk. Another one is sucrose, or common table sugar, which is composed of the monomers glucose and fructose. Now we can talk about polysaccharides. Poly meaning many is a long chain of many monosaccharides linked by a covalent bond, and it can contain different types of monosaccharides. Some examples are starch, glycogen, cellulose, and hate pronouncing this one, chitin. Carbohydrates serve as different functions for different animals. Arthropods, such as the spiders seen here, have an outer skeleton called an exoskeleton, which protects their internal body parts. This outer skeleton is made up of the polysaccharide chitin, which is a nitrogenous carbohydrate and is made up of repeating units of modified sugar containing nitrogen. On to lipids. So when you hear lipids, you obviously think of fats and oils, which may bring up a negative connotation to our culture, but in fact it is essential to life. So here we have a saturated fatty acid and then an unsaturated fatty acid. So, just some general facts about lipid. They are largely nonpolar. Nonpolar molecules are hydrophobic or insoluble in water. Lipids perform many functions within cells, like storing energy for long-term in the forms of fat. They also provide insulation from the environment for plants and animals. They help keep aquatic animals and birds dry by forming a protective layer over the fur, feathers because of the hydrophobic layer. Fatty acids can be saturated or unsaturated. First, with the saturated fatty acids, they tend to get packed tightly and are solid at room temperature because they're packed so tightly. For example, bacon. When you put raw bacon in the pan, the fat liquidates, but when you let the pan cool down before you cool it, you'll see that the fat has solidified. Now let's move on to unsaturated fatty acids, which is right here. Unsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature and are called oils. If there is a double bond in the molecule, then it is known as a monosaccharide fat, for example, olive oil. If there are more than one double bond, then it is a polyunsaturated fat like canola oil. Unsaturated fats or oils are usually made from plants and contain unsaturated fatty acids. The double bond that causes a bend that prevents the fatty acid from packing tightly, and right here is the double bond. As you can see, both of them are very similar except for this double hydrogen at the end, which makes it not packed so tightly, keeping it liquid at room temperature. Unsaturated fats help to improve blood cholesterol levels, where saturated fat contributes to plaque formation in the arteries and increases risk of heart attacks. So this big guy right here is a phospholipid. So phospholipids are the major constituent bone. Phospholipids have a hydrophobic and hydrophilic region. The fatty acid chains are hydrophobic, exclude themselves from water, whereas the phosphate hydrophilic interacts with water. So there's the phosphate head, which is hydrophilic, and then the tails, which are hydrophobic. Here's what it looks like all put together. Here's the phosphate waterphilic one that lets water in and out, and then the hydrophobic bilayer in the middle. Waxes are made up of a hydrocarbon chain with an and a fatty acid. Examples of wax include beeswax. So without this wax made from lipids, the beehive would surely just crumble apart, leaving the bees defenseless and nowhere to store their honey and their young. Another animal that has lipids in its fur or feathers would be ducks and otters, and they get in the water all the time, and to keep themselves dry they have that lipid layer. So now on the nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are a key macromolecule in the continuity of life. They carry the genetic blueprint of a cell and carry instructions for the functioning of the cell. The two main types of nucleic acids are DNA and RNA. DNA is the genetic material found in every living thing. The other type is RNA, which is mostly involved in protein synthesis. The DNA molecule never leaves the nucleus, but instead uses RNA as an intermediary to communicate with the rest of the cell. DNA and RNA are made up of a monomer known as a nucleotide, which is this guy right here. It has a nitrogenous base, a here's the phosphate, and then here is the nitrogen. The nitrogen is the sponge, while the phosphate is the emerald. The nitrogenous base in a nucleotide is attached to a sugar molecule, which is then attached to a phosphate group. The nucleotides link together by a phosphodiester bond to form a polynucleotide. The rungs on the RNA consist of alternating patterns of the cytosine blue block, the guanine green block, and the adenine yellow block, and a uracil orange block. Hopefully I got those colors right, because I am colorblind. So then DNA has pretty much the same thing, but there's two sides to it. The rungs on DNA are the same as RNA, except for instead of uracil, it is thymine. Some of the traits of DNA is that it carries genetic information. It remains in the nucleus. It has a double helix structure. Its sugar is deoxyribonucleic is usually a single strand structure. Its sugar is ribose, and its peptides is cytosine and uracil. And its purines is adenine and guanine. Information flow in an organism from DNA to RNA protein and RNA dictates the structure of protein, a process known as translation. This is the central dogma of life for all organisms. However, this does not apply in connection with viral infection. Now onto proteins. So proteins are the most abundant macromolecule in organic organisms and have the most diverse range of all macromolecules. Proteins have several structure, regulatory, contractile, protective functions. They also may serve in transport, storage, or membranes, or they may be toxins or enzymes. Each protein is different. Each cell could have 1,000 different proteins, and they all have unique functions. They all have different structures and functions. They are, however, polymers of amino acids, which are shown here, and are arranged in a linear sequence. Protein has different shapes and weights, and some have glob shapes while some are fibrous. Hemoglobins are examples of the glob shape, while collagen found in our skin is fibrous shape. The shape of the protein is critical to the function. They are subject to permanent changes with changes in temperature, pH, and exposure. With any of those, they could change permanently. All proteins are made up of different arrangements of the same 20 kinds of amino acids, like these ones right here. Amino acids are the monomers in protein. Each one has the same fundamental structure as seen by the replicas. It consists of a central carbon bonded to an amino group and a carboxyl group and a hydrogen atom. The sequence and numbers of amino acids determine the shape and size and function. Each amino acid is attached to another with a covalent bond known as a peptide bond. The products formed by such linkage are called polypeptides, which is a polymer of amino acid. The term protein is used for polypeptide or polypeptides that have been combined together and have a distinctive shape and function. There are 4 levels of protein structure: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. I'm probably not saying that 4th one right. But the primary structure is a sequence of a chain of amino acids. Sorry, I read that. So this is a primary, the sequence chain of amino acids. The secondary structure is a hydrogen bonding of the peptide backbone causes the amino acid to fold into repeating patterns. Hence the secondary protein structure, which is the what's it called? The I can't think of it. And then the alpha helix. Can't believe I forgot that. Okay, so the tertiary protein structure is the 3D folding pattern of protein due to a side chain interaction. Quaternary protein structure. So this is tertiary right here. And then quaternary protein structure is protein consisting of more than one amino acid chain. Yeah, sorry I forgot. My first 3 videos are like 30-40 minutes long, so I'm trying to rush it along, and I'm not doing a very good job. So let's get to the fun part. Every kind of protein has a different function. First, we're going to look at the digestive enzymes, which can include and nutrients. Another job is transport. Of course, this wanted to not work, but they transport using the protein hemoglobin or albumin, and they carry substance in the blood or lymphs throughout the body. So let's throw some food in here so we can see the digestive enzymes in action. So as you can see, the food will fall into the digestive enzymes, which can be either all or some of these, which is then transported through the blood or the lymphs by the hemoglobin. So another function, although they got destroyed, would be, man oh man, so the defense is the immunoglobulins, and they protect the body from pathogens. So I gotta remake these real quick. Because they all got destroyed. So let's see the immunoglobulins in action. So let's insert some foreign pathogens, which is going to be the pillagers. So our immunoglobulins are fighting the foreign pathogens. They won't always do a good job, but most of the time, as you can see, they do succeed. So another part is hormones, and again, have to reset because the first one took me 30 minutes and this one is bordering. So I loaded some insulin up there. So another job is hormones, which coordinate the activity of the different body systems. For example, insulin. Insulin controls the sugar content in the blood. Now, sometimes some people don't produce enough insulin, or they produce more insulin. That's called diabetes. So usually when the blood sugar gets out of control, it will produce insulin to control it, simply said. So this is a little too much sugar right there. Let's let the proteins throw in some insulin to control it. So now, oh, well, there's more sugars. But the insulin will knock down the sugar content, which is a job of the proteins, which is hormones. Some other ones are contractile, and the example is actin, and that affects muscle contraction. And then another example of a function of proteins is storage, which legume storage proteins or albumin, and they provide nourishment and early development for the embryos and the seedling. So proteins have many functions, and they come in 4 forms and are made up of 20 similar structure amino acids. The ones I built are alanine, valine, lysine, and aspartic acid. So the light gray block represents this amino group, while the quartz block represents this carboxyl group, and they all have hydrogen, all have similar structure. Well, that is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I had to cut a lot of information out because I was, like I said, at 40 minutes long. So hopefully this one's shorter. Thanks for watching.